Evil has survived. A dark figure wanders in the east. He must be stopped at all costs.
Diablo II Resurrected's latest trailer just fixed a huge plot hole from the original Diablo II game. The plot hole in question regards the Soul Stone being embedded in the Wanderer's head, which in the original cinematics was hidden, but becomes visible in D2R's trailer. Now, as a bit of backstory of how the confusion first occurred, at the culmination of Diablo 1, after slaying the Lord of Terror, which canonically happens at the hands of the warrior, the brave hero does the unthinkable. The warrior then cuts out Diablo's Soulstone from Ulbrich's head and proceeded to shove it into his own skull. Luis Barriga, game director of Diablo 4, explained the questionable act so eloquently by saying,
"After all, this is the IP where you get sent to save the child Albrecht in the first Diablo, and guess what? There's no saving him. This is the franchise where even after you kill the Lord of Terror himself, it's not good enough, and you need to risk your own mortal soul to try to contain him and just fend evil off for one more day."
And here's where things get very interesting. The first factoid is that according to David Brevik, creator of Diablo 1 and one of the founders of Blizzard North, the cinematic that we saw was actually outsourced to another studio, Blizzard South. As such, the team at Blizzard North developing the game were absolutely stunned to see this event transpire. They had no idea, and I'm going to allow a clip to run of him explaining it at GDC in full because honestly, this is gold.
All the cinematics for the Blizzard games were made down south by a cinematic team, and they were doing pretty much whatever the hell they wanted to, and we had no influence whatsoever over them. And so we had ideas, and they'd come up and we'd talk about them, and then they would go down and do something different. And so, you know, like a lot of the cinematics didn't turn out like we wanted them to, but then we started to get along a little better and things started to work a little better. There's a little more cooperation. Things started to get, and things were going great. And then they said, okay, well, we're done. We've finished the final cinematic. And I'm like, okay, cool. I can't wait to see the You've Killed Diablo cinematic. And so they sent it up and we look at it and we're all crowded around the desk and we're looking at this thing and then we watch it, and he dies, and then he jams the gem in his forehead, and all of us are like, what the hell did we just watch? What was that? That doesn't make any sense at all. I don't know about this. And so we had a little bit of an argument about whether or not we were going to have this or not, and whether or not this could be the official ending. It was pretty controversial down there, too. So there was no intention of this being the ending to the game at all. But in a lot of ways, it turned out to kind of make sense. Because of the ability to kind of play the game over and over again, it kind of set up this weird, not really much of a story. You got to really stretch the truth to kind of get back to Diablo still exists kind of thing. But it was that was kind of some of the premise of you become Diablo, now you have to defeat your old guy kind of thing. And that was kind of the idea behind it. Whether or not that really worked or what it means or what it meant at the time, or did it, no, it didn't make sense, and that's, you know, that's just the way it was. And never our intent to do that, but that was the way it was, and it stayed that way. And actually now, looking back, I'm quite happy with it, actually. It's just weird enough to remember.
So it seems this was a happy accident, keeping the Soul Stone embedded in the warrior's head, as it turned out to be a cornerstone of Diablo 2's story. But the confusion outside of the fact shoving a sharp stone in your brain area should kill you dead doesn't stop there. Before Diablo 2 was released, there was an official trailer. Many of you have told me it shipped with the original StarCraft CD from the point of view of the warrior as he heads east and in hope of salvation. In this trailer, the warrior not only bears red eyes and his lips are stitched, as if a foul evil taint would escape if they were to ever part, But more confusion arises when we see the warrior nursing in his hands a large red soul stone of Diablo's, which at the end of the trailer he inexplicably drops, which then spawned another flurry of questions. Did the warrior not really stick the stone in his head? Was the idea retconned and we were never told? Is the trailer not canon? Or was the scene for effect? Just as an aside, this trailer was still in the vein of the gothic horror vibe from D1, and clearly Blizzard was still figuring out which direction that they were going in. Nevertheless, this is an absolute treat to rewatch. I totally recommend it, thanks to Paul Eiding's voice acting of the tortured Dark Wanderer.
I know that the better part of my soul will remain behind. Forever.
Regarding the Soul Stone, we seemingly have an answer in Diablo 2 cinematics. There we see the warrior, now under the guise of the Dark Wanderer in full view. However, removed totally is the signature Soul Stone. The Wanderer appears as a cloaked, bald, and broken man. We see momentarily in close-up shots he bears a blemish on his forehead, but nothing solid and no stone. It's only in Lutgo Lane, when freeing his brother Bale, do we spy a concave crater appear in his forehead as he starts to succumb to Diablo's influence. But unlike his brother Bale, there is no stone. It should be noted, we do see the Soul Stone removed from Tal Rasha / Bale's chest, but Bale later prefers to wear it as a fashionable necklace rather than insert it into his own body. But as we know, Bale's final gambit was to corrupt the World Stone by shoving his shard of destruction inside it, so what's the point of shoving it in his thigh or whatever? But we have no visible proof that during Diablo 2 that the stone was still in fact inside the warrior's head, or he had somehow removed it and was carrying it around as his brother Bale had. Moving to Act 3 of Diablo 2 under the city of Travancore, we then see the brothers meet and Diablo sheds the guise of the Wanderer and transforms fully into the Lord of Terror. And it's then we finally get a glimpse of the Soul Stone, now protruding from his head. And again, finally, when we fight the Lord of Terror in his own sanctum, it's not only unmistakably in place, but also bigger than before, until we casually carve it out once Diablo is defeated. So the question still remains, was the Soul Stone buried in the warrior's grey matter the entire time? Well, thanks to Diablo II Resurrected's trailer, the answer is a resounding yes, as it makes an effort to leave no room for interpretation. Let's quickly re-examine both scenes at the same time. As you can see in the original, on the left, that there was a crater left in the Wanderer's head, but Resurrected actually shows us that the stone is nestled in his skull, with a much more graphical twisting and gnarling of the Wanderer's countenance as it purposefully pushes its way out of his head, with terror escaping out into the open in one of the most frightful manners that they could conjure. Although the logic of having the Soul Stone sharing valuable real estate with a victim's brain makes little sense to me and the original creator David Brevik, I personally take it with a grain of salt as video game logic, a happy accident that spawned from Blizzard North taking creative license with the original, but also, in its wake, creating one of the most captivating narratives in video game history. I do want to say I'm not a big fan of changes for just the sake of change, but I applaud Vicarious Visions in this instance for clearing up unnecessary confusion for fans for the last 2 decades. All that's left is September 23rd's release, so we can enjoy the game in its entirety. Or as Bale would say, give it to us, Blizzard, and all will be forgiven.
No. No, 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 no.
You have done well, Marius. Now I think you shall have your reward.
I don't deserve it.